Support for this show comes from LeadQuizzes. LeadQuizzes helps you easily set up high-converting quizzes to capture and qualify leads for your business. Visit leadquizzes.com/podcast to get a 14-day free trial today.
That was a freaking train wreck. Absolute train wreck. We had a medical director at the time, and they were really good friends. And when we did not renew the contract with the marketing strategist, the medical director actually quit. So I think that was a pretty scary time for us.
From LeadQuizzes, it's Journey to Seven Figures, a show about entrepreneurs and the stories behind how they grew their business to seven figures and beyond. We cover the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the lessons they learned along the way. Welcome back to Journey to Seven Figures. Today I'm interviewing Jessica Stellwagen, co-founder of Bodify. Bodify specializes in Coolsculpting, the world's #1 non-invasive fat reduction procedure, freezing fat cells to initiate a natural cell death process. Bodify is the #1 Coolsculpting provider in Arizona and #4 in the nation out of 3,000 providers, as determined by both Coolsculpting and their clients. I'm very excited to interview Jessica today and learn more about her journey to seven figures. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to jump into your story today. You guys had $2.2 million in sales in your third year with 40% net profit, and you guys are the #4 Coolsculpting account in the nation, which is really impressive. So I'm really excited to talk about your story and how you guys got there so quickly.
Very cool. I'm excited to be here and offer any insight that I can.
All right. Well, Jessica, why don't you tell us, before you got started with your Coolsculpting clinic, how did it come to be? Why did you decide to start this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like since my sister and I were very, very young, we knew that we were going to go into business together, but our passions or our interests never really collided. But that was until we found Coolsculpting. My sister and I were both in Arizona, and my sister was running a med spa, and one of the technologies it offered was Coolsculpting. And she bugged me for about 3 years to quit my job and come and help her grow that side of the practice. And eventually I wisened up and I went over there. And within about 3 months, I just saw that it was a huge opportunity. So we masterminded, sat down with the doctor and just asked if we could actually buy that practice from him. And although he declined, he said something to us that I think really just shifted who we were as entrepreneurs and also just business people and humans. And he said, "You know what, girls, you rock. You're going to do great. And there's enough fat to freeze for us all to win." And he just said, "Go out and do your own thing." So it does make it a little awkward because that doctor was actually my uncle, but we took his advice and we went out and raised $400,000, got a website, found our space, bought machines, got the medical director, and really hit the ground running. And within about 3 months, we became the #1 provider in Arizona. So it's been an exceptional ride and we absolutely love it.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll jump into some of this, but I think the first part that I want to jump into is why you decided Coolsculpting was the right thing. Because I think part of it had to do with timing, why you guys were successful. How did you guys know this was the right area to go into?
Yeah, so both my parents are entrepreneurs, grew up with parents that own businesses, and just something that they constantly said to us growing up is if you don't have passion and if you don't have heart, then you are not going to be able to put the time, energy, and effort into growing your business. And although it sounds kind of bizarre, my mom's always like, "I can't believe you freeze fat for a living." What I actually love is being able to uplift people. And good, bad, right, or wrong, how we feel in our bodies actually really impacts how we operate in the world on a daily basis. And the technology worked. My sister understood that very well, having worked at a practice that offered it for about 3 years. And we just saw it as a tremendous opportunity that was coming down the pipeline and one that we'd have big regrets about if we didn't jump on.
Okay, so real quickly for our audience, what is Coolsculpting?
So Coolsculpting is the world's #1 non-invasive fat reduction technology. Essentially, high-level overview, a fat cell really, really doesn't like the cold. And so our technology gets fat cells to a certain temperature for a certain amount of time and just triggers a natural mechanism inside that cell that tells that fat cell to die. And in about 2 to 4 months, it'll flush out of your body. And once it's gone for good. So it's literally permanent non-invasive fat reduction, and it absolutely rocks, reshapes, and contours and really sculpts people that have pockets of fat that just don't respond to diet and exercise efforts.
Okay, very cool. So the first thing that you guys did is you guys decided you want to go into this space, and then you went out and raised $400,000. So how did you guys do that?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate and had some incredible mentors my entire life. I followed Robert Kiyosaki and Blair Singer and, was closely working with them. And something that just really impacted me is he always said, you can't do good business with bad people. And so my sister and I were very clear that we wanted to own 100% of our business, but we also didn't have the money to start a cool sculpting practice and then be able to market how we wanted to so that we could kind of withstand the times if it were bad times or took a while to kind of get up and running. And so we just wrote a business plan. And actually, we didn't write a business plan. I hired someone to write a business plan, and that was the best $3,000 I ever spent. He was such a numbers person. He saw the landscape. He saw the opportunity. He literally laid out the good, the bad, the ugly, what could go exceptionally well, what could freaking blow up in flames. And I took that proposal to 6 people. Again, because I was well connected, I had some people that I knew like to invest in up and coming companies. And we just said, hey, this is what we want to do. And you're going to trust us and we're going to give you a high rate of return, but you get 0 equity in our business. And of the 6 people, 5 said yes. And I'll never forget the first person that said yes. My sister and I were in my apartment talking. And he goes, sure, where do I send the check? And I literally did not know what to say. We started jumping up and down and like screaming inaudibly. And it was just awesome when we got off the phone and we were just shaking. We're like, holy shit, someone just gave us $85,000. So it was pretty cool.
Okay. So you raised 400 grand. Is it all on your bank account? And then what happens next?
Yeah, so obviously we had to get the machines, which are a little more expensive than I would like. They're about $185,000 each. So we bought one machine and then we actually bought the other one on eBay. So anyone who works for Allergan at this point would absolutely hate hearing me say that, but we just had to be smart with our dollars. You know, something else my parents always told me growing up is a lot of new businesses are just undercapitalized and they just run out of money and they can't do what they need to do to actually kind of build that momentum and get over that initial hump of not having enough customers. And so we got our space, built it out. We wanted it to be very unique and like a med spa-like. Build a website because that was absolutely critical. If people were going to know we did business, we had to have a great website. And we also hired a marketing team. Something my sister and I believe is do what you do best and delegate the rest. And we wanted to focus on growing our business and not some of the ancillary things that can really kind of tie you down and be a vampire suck. And then we hired a medical director. So that's where most of our money went initially.
Okay. So when you guys first picked a space, was that intimidating? How did you know where to go?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I think we looked at like 65 spaces and we had 3 heartbreaks. We had, 3 that were almost at the dotted line. And then all of a sudden they said, oh, we're not going to build you a bathroom, which we're like, hello, that's imperative. People are hanging out with us for hours and they're not going to walk through, an open space in a robe. And we just kept trusting the process. I absolutely believe that the right things show up. And sometimes when you get deterred or something doesn't happen how you want, it's because there's something else better around the corner. And so we really wanted a small boutique business. And if you saw where we are, you would absolutely laugh. We're in this huge, massive building downtown and on 44th and Thomas, but it's the absolute perfect space for us. And again, we brought on somebody who was an expert, so we didn't get ourselves in trouble when we were signing the lease and negotiating it.
Okay. Why was it a perfect space for you guys?
They let us redo it exactly how we wanted. My sister used to work for the Four Seasons, and I just think people really, especially with, a cosmetic procedure, they just want to come in and feel 100% pampered, not like they're at a doctor's office, and really almost creating like a second or third home where they just feel absolutely, a welcoming and warm and non-judgmental environment. And we were able to really beautifully create that in this space.
Okay. I think one of the interesting things that you guys did, you mentioned to me, is that a lot of places that offer cool sculpting, it's like a med spa where they have tons of different services, but you guys really wanted to specialize. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I actually worked for a gentleman and he taught attorneys how to build their law practices. And one of the things he always said, and I'm sure he's not the creator of this, is that niches lead to riches. And that really stuck with me. To be 100% transparent, part of the reason initially that we only did cool sculpting is the cool sculpting machines are expensive and so are other machines. And we didn't raise enough capital to go buy 10 different technologies. And so we said, hey, let's just champion cool sculpting. Let's eat, sleep, live, and breathe it and be the best at one thing. And then just really trust the old adage, jack of all trades, master of none, and believe that if people were going to spend this amount of money and permanently change their body, that they'd really appreciate going to an expert who that was their sole focus.
And like looking back now, because you guys specialize and that is your sole focus, could you give me like a few things that you feel like were big advantages because you specialized?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, that we just specialized in it. Secondly, we actually decided to create the man cave. So for all you men out there, of course you have fat and fat does not discriminate. But one of the big holes that we saw in the marketplace was that men feel a little bit more uncomfortable going into like this frilly med spa and getting, Botox done or facials or any type of cosmetic procedure. And so we really wanted to create a space that was designed for men where they could sit back, freeze their fat and relax. But we knew it would give us a PR angle. CoolSculpting's been around for 8 years. We certainly were not the first place to come in and do CoolSculpting, but we wanted to be able to get on media and get some news coverage. And so we believed that having a man cave was going to be one of the best ways to do that. And it proved highly effective. Secondly, just as good business people and humans, I would hate if I walked into a place, gave them money, did a procedure, and didn't get the intended result. And so we just said, hey, we should probably create some type of promise or guarantee. So we created our beautiful results promise because we just knew we'd be sick to our stomachs if we were sitting down with people, 4 months after treatment who had given us thousands of dollars. And we said, guess what? We don't have a solution for you and it didn't work and good luck. So that was a huge differentiator for us.
What was that promise?
So it's our beautiful results promise. And essentially what we guarantee is that at the 4-month mark, if we are not seeing visible reduction in your before and after photos, we'd actually retreat you for free. If anybody owns a med spa out there or kind of is involved in the aesthetic world, you definitely know that that can open a can of worms. But I also think it put the onus on us to make sure that we are setting proper expectations, that we weren't treating people who weren't ideal candidates for CoolSculpting, and that also our before and afters were very, very representative of the result that someone can anticipate so that we weren't promising things that we couldn't actually deliver on. And I think the last thing is that our experience is just incredible. I mean, people don't remember what you do or say, they remember how you make them feel. From, the first visit to our website to if you opt in for before and afters or am I a candidate forms, or if you call our office, you will feel a palpable difference between how we interact with you versus any other med spa or business for that matter.
Awesome. So you guys probably got a lot better at actually treating people. You guys probably get a lot more referrals because people see you as the specialist. You guys can just design and craft your marketing and like your follow-up and all that stuff specifically for CoolSculpting. So I can see compared to a med spa that's like all over the board, it would be hard for them to like out-market and out-experience you guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, something we've all experienced ourselves. If you go to West Elm or if you go to some type of website and you opt in to get 10% off, before you know it, your inbox is filled with a bunch of stuff that they sell that you don't have an interest in. And I think people are happy to get information and education as long as you're giving them it regarding things that they have an interest in. And so, yes, we have a unique ability to give people only CoolSculpting information because otherwise they don't come into our system. So we definitely have a leg up in that regard.
Okay. Well, Jessica, let's talk about like the first month you guys are in business. How did you guys start getting clients through the door?
Oh my gosh, I am not a very nervous or stressed out person, but we always said fake it till you make it. And of course, there were those days where like, oh my gosh, is this going to actually work? Or did we just make the biggest mistake of our lives? But we, again, just trusted that if we did the right things for the right amount of time, that people would start coming in. And Melissa and I always laugh. We literally used to have maybe 2 or 3 consults in a day, and we would put them right next to each other so that perception creates reality. So people would come in, they say, oh my gosh, there's 2 other people on the couch. Like this company must be rocking and rolling. And one time my sister was in a consult and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to just pick up the phone and keep calling our own phone number. So the person in the consult literally keeps hearing the phone ring. And Melissa got out of the consult and she's like, you're a bitch. Like that was so disruptive. You do not need to call the phone 30 times to make this person think the phone is ringing. Once or twice is fine. So we always just believe fake it till you make it. But I do think the website and just the SEO and the fact that we had fresh, relevant, and unique content, it was an easy site to navigate. And then most of all, we captured people's information who had an interest so we could proactively reach out to them versus hoping that they would actually take action and set a consult.
So you guys built a website and you started focusing on local SEO. Did you start that before you actually opened the clinic?
Yeah, not much before because we didn't find the person we wanted to work with, but I would say about a month before, which probably isn't enough lead time, but in our case, it actually worked.
Okay, so just that SEO alone was resulting in 2 to 3 consults a day?
Yeah. And again, I think that, if you're a new business, there's a huge difference between, the number of people that come to your website and who is actually a lead. I talk to providers all over the country and they'll be like, oh, but I get 10,000, website visitors every few months. And for me, that's meaningless unless they're actually virtually raising their hand and giving you their information. So that way, as a company, you can begin to nurture them and encourage them to come in. So I think because we had that dialed down, that's probably the biggest reason we were actually able to convert website visitors into leads and consults.
Okay, so someone hits your website, then how do you actually get their information or get them to call you guys?
Yeah, so one of the things that we knew is people are very, very visual, and also people are insanely curious. And so first and foremost, we said, hey, guess what? If you want to see some before and after photos, you don't get to see those unless you actually give me your information. Again, one of the benefits that we had is my sister had previously worked at a practice that did Coolsculpting. So we had before and afters of our own clients. And so that was, a very ethical thing for us to do. And about 80% of all people who opt in on our website actually ask for before and after photos. The second opt-in form that works exceptionally well because of curiosity is take this quiz to find out if you're a candidate. So you know all about quizzes, right? To generate leads and capture leads. But people just, at their core, they will go through their brain and they say, am I or am I not a candidate? Oh, great. There's this really easy quiz that I can take that will flat out tell me if Coolsculpting might be a fit. And then the third one was a promotion. Just, hey, did you want to get updates on promotions? Opt in. And again, most people like a deal or like to believe they're getting a deal. So that was a nice opt-in form to have as well.
Were you specific around what the promotion was, or was it just more future promotions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe in being vague. Something you and I talked about before is you cannot, in my opinion, be the best and the cheapest. And so we were very clear that we are going to be the best. And we actually only do one promotion a year. That doesn't mean that I never negotiate. It just means that, to the public and in all my marketing platforms, I don't advocate sale, because I think you start to train people that they only need to take action if there's a sale, and then they always want it. And then you're kind of in that perpetual hell, so to speak, of giving people discounts all the time. But the nice thing is when someone opts in for that promotion, what we say is we immediately text them and just say, hey, we're so glad you found us and have an interest in Coolsculpting. What areas frustrate you? And it's kind of that bob and weave. They might ask you a specific question, but then you just turn it back around, ask them a question, and start engaging in that conversation.
And for perspective, what does a client usually pay you guys?
Yeah, so our average is about $3,400 for Coolsculpting. And because it's permanent, that's usually a one-time visit. Of course, we have people that spend more and people that spend less, but 34 is pretty much our average client.
Is that pretty regular for your industry?
No. So I was just speaking for Allergan last night in Las Vegas, and they told us nationwide that the average cycle price is $625, and a cycle just basically is representative of a machine going on you on one body part one time. And at Bodify, our average cycle price is $775. So we are definitely higher than the standard. And I think when people don't have experience to stand on, or when they don't invest in their girls or guys who are selling to actually know how to sell and to position value over price, then I think people have to start discounting. But people all day long will pay. We've raised our prices 3 times since we've opened. So people are willing to pay. You just have to position yourself as the best and they'll do it.
So how do you go about positioning in the sales process once you get someone in the clinic to do a consultation with you guys?
Yeah. So, again, I think it's the welcoming and non-judgmental environment. I worked with Joe Polish a lot, and he always said people need to be, predisposed and pre-motivated and pre-excited and predetermined to buy. And I think a lot of that education before they even come in really primes them to actually say yes during our consultation. We do a stupid thing on the phone and say, hey, when you come in, can I have coffee or tea or something other than water for you? And I think simply by asking that, it engages a lot of reciprocity. They feel more obligated to show up. And a good percentage of people actually are like, holy crap, I can't believe you asked that. And so they already know that we're going to be a different type of organization. And so they're willing to pay a premium for that. I think I read a statistic the other day that said 63% of people are willing to pay more for an elevated experience. Once we're in the office, we take the full 45 minutes for a consultation. We talk about our beautiful results promise and that Coolsculpting is all we do. And then, of course, we show them our own client before and afters. And then I think it's really tuning into their languaging and finding out if there's someone that's more motivated by brightness of future or to avoid pain. And if it's the avoid pain, then I'm happy to bring up the potential consequences of going to a cheaper provider who doesn't have the experience that we have.
Very interesting. Okay. So that's kind of the pitch and position for it. You guys aren't doing any deals when they come in. We'll get back to the show in a minute, but first a quick thanks to our sponsor, LeadQuizzes. If you want to grow your business to 7 figures and beyond, you must learn how to generate leads predictably. When I first started my business, lead generation felt like riding a roller coaster. I would have huge sales months and then months with nothing. This happened because I relied solely on referrals and networking to grow my business. Predicting growth and investing in the future were frightening because I didn't have control over my lead generation. That was before we created LeadQuizzes. Now I predictably generate leads in my sleep and have stopped worrying about where the next sale will come from. Top marketers like Neil Patel and Lewis House have used LeadQuizzes to increase their lead capture by up to 500%. Think about it. Quizzes are fun, engaging, and you can offer personalized feedback in exchange for your quiz taker's contact information. LeadQuizzes is a software that allows you to set up high-converting quizzes quickly without having to hire an expensive programmer. In fact, our users have generated over 3 million leads for their businesses. Take control of your lead generation today and start your 14-day free trial by going to leadquizzes.com/podcast. So let's talk about like when you capture a lead on your site, how do you get them to actually come in for a consultation? And like if they don't want to come in right away, like what do you do to get them to do a consultation and actually show up?
Yeah. So again, I'm quoting Google, so hopefully it's accurate, but I read the other day that you're 100 times more likely to engage with a lead if you get in touch with them within the first 5 minutes versus 30 minutes of them actually having an interest in what you're providing. And so I am very, very, very insistent with my girls that we spend a lot of money to get that phone to ring or for an email to come in or for someone to opt in. And so their main job is to take care of those people and reach out within 5 minutes. So initially they get a text. We already talked about that before. The vast majority of people aren't going to pick up their freaking phone at work and talk about fat freezing, but they're going to respond to a text very quickly. So we just engage them by saying, hey, we're glad you found us. What are the areas that frustrate you? And then we have that conversation. In addition to that, we use the CRM Infusionsoft, which I absolutely love. And every single person who is in that system is going to get 8 educational emails about Coolsculpting. So you and I had spoken before, 50% of people who do Coolsculpting have never done an aesthetic procedure before. And so for a lot of them, they're trying to gather that information. And so from our perspective, if we can be the people or the company that are giving them accurate information and helping them navigate that, then we have a very good bond and trust with them before they ever even walk through that door. But yeah, buy, die, or unsubscribe. Unless you tell me to stop calling you, stop emailing you, stop texting you, my girls are following up endlessly to get you through that door.
Okay, awesome. And so like the education is probably a reason you guys can charge more as well because it builds so much trust with them. Can you talk to me a little bit about like the follow-up? Like even with the text, like you guys text them right away, like what's frustrating you? Kind of what does that process look like?
Yeah, so usually people start to engage with us. And then at some point after they say, oh, my abs or my love handles frustrate me, then we just have text shortcuts. Like I do believe that you have to have personalized stuff, but at the same time, my girls can't sit around all day and personally text 400 people. I wish it were that many. It's not. But we just have some coined phrases that we really like to use. And so we try and truncate the conversation pretty quickly after engaging with them, simply because we want them in the office. We just know you can't give someone a consult over the phone or over a text message. We want them to come in here. We want them to meet us. We want them to be comfortable with us and then make the decision to do business. So we'll always say, hey, are you open to coming in and having a complimentary consult so we can take a look at the areas that frustrate you and see if it's a fit? If people ask pricing questions, we're very good at, the bob and weave. We do not believe that you can quote people over the phone, something that Groupon does. And it's one of our favorite ways to kind of separate ourselves is people be like, oh, I saw on Groupon, it's, $600. And we just say that's totally irresponsible. Those companies don't see your body. They don't know what treatment plan you need. And they're probably going to do some type of bait and switch. And people really resonate with that phrase. And they're like, okay, you're right. Like I'm going to come into you and it's okay that you're not telling me how much it's going to cost before you see me.
Okay. So you schedule the consultation. How do you make sure that they actually show up? Do you have any follow up with them?
Yeah. So within Infusionsoft, anytime someone actually books a consult, we have an internal form that indicates such. And then we just say, guess what? We're so freaking excited to meet you because we are. I mean, my sister and I recognize that we don't get to have the life that we have and we don't get to have the employees and the fun that we have if we actually don't have clients. And so we truly and legitimately are excited for them to come in. And of course, they're going to get a confirmation call, a confirmation email, and also a reminder text. And we just understand that sometimes life gets busy. I talked to a doctor last night and he goes, oh, well, if someone no-shows, like they're dead to me, right? Like Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank. And my philosophy is, guess what? Like life happens. Sometimes people need a little nudge or they need a little push. And if you just kind of write them off, they might go down the street and do business elsewhere. So we're very good at making sure people follow up, but actually asking people what they want to drink outside of water, coffee or tea, for example, is probably one of the biggest ways that we minimize our no-show. People just feel obligated to show up because you've been nice.
Very interesting. And so you guys, in year 3, you guys did $2.2 million and you only have 3 employees. Is that plus you and your sister? So 5?
Yeah, there's 5. And Katie is our newest employee and she actually just came on about 3 months ago.
What kind of training do you need to put in place for like your team to actually do a good job at following up and making sure these people are responded to quickly and then the follow-up is there?
Yeah. So I always heard, where are your systems? And when business owners would say in my head, they're like, well, that's not a system because if you get hit by a bus, like there goes your system. And so we were pretty clear up front that we really needed to have a manual or a training manual or processes and procedures that we wanted people to follow, not only so we could tweak and refine them, but so that the experience was always going to be the same. Something I love to say is, guess what? McDonald's has a pretty shitty burger, but you get the same shitty burger wherever you go. And that's something that they've mastered. They know who they are. You're going to get that same experience every single time. And so it's not a guessing game for people. So they like to show up. So I think the biggest thing is investing in your people. I talk to other CoolSculpting providers and they'll buy a CoolSculpting machine for $185,000. And then they're like, well, I'm not going to go send my girl for $1,000 to get trained. And it's so narrow-minded and foolish. And so we spent a lot of time training our girls and actually having tests and quizzes to make sure they're doing the right things. And if they're not, it's just a learning opportunity. But, being the champion of that vision of what we want our practice to be like and just having the tests and measures in place to make sure that it's actually happening on a daily basis. And I know it is because we get so many comments, not only on Yelp and Facebook and Google, but people just personally reaching out to us being like, I do not know what you have done with this team, but they're incredible. So it's good feedback.
Have you guys made any bad hires yet?
So the only bad hire we made, and it hasn't been someone that worked in our business, our very first year, we hired a marketing strategist and her whole goal was to go out and kind of build awareness around Bodify and get us to do, joint ventures with other businesses. And that was a freaking train wreck. Absolute train wreck. We had a medical director at the time and they were really good friends. And when we did not renew the contract with the marketing strategist, the medical director actually quit. So I think that was a pretty scary time for us. Of course, we figured it out and we're better off now, but that was a stupid tax of $100,000. That was a big one. Yeah.
All right. So we talked about like your follow-up processes with Infusionsoft and text and call. And for your traffic, if you're getting people to actually come to you and show interest, you guys focus on local SEO. What else did you focus on? You guys had PR. And what was your strategy around that? So you developed these man caves, and then how did you get press to pick that up?
Yeah, so we actually worked with our marketing company, and they had built those alliances and they knew the networks and the channels to go to get the appropriate people. So they were wonderful in that regard. And then we did radio. We still do radio today. It's an absolute wonderful return for us. I think it's a long-term strategy. And I think some of the short-sightedness of business owners and even myself that I have to remind myself is you can't throw $10 at something and necessarily expect a return tomorrow. And in things like radio or TV, that can be pretty painful because it can take months to get the return and it's not inexpensive. But now it's absolutely one of our best returns of everything that we invest in.
Okay. So if you had to start over and do radio again, like how would you approach that strategy? Because for most businesses, that's probably a scarier, more expensive thing to get into than something like Facebook ads or SEO. So what did you guys do and how would you do it over if you would?
Yeah, something my sister and I continually asked ourselves and continue to ask ourselves is take off the business owner hat and put on the prospect hat and say, well, what would I want to hear? What would move me to action? What could I see that would move me to action? Because often you are not your own client. And so if you make those decisions and build those strategies around who you are and how you think, you're going to miss the opportunity to gain clients. And so I think something we do very different on radio is we chose an endorser. And we actually chose not to treat our endorser. So a lot of people will actually hire an endorser and then they do the CoolSculpting on them or the laser hair removal. But from our perspective, we wanted our endorser to talk about who we were as people because we already trusted that they knew the technology was good and that they just needed to find the right place to go for the technology. And so for us, it was really important that that was our strategy and that's what we would continue to do. And I would just have done that sooner than taking a few months to figure it out.
Okay. So like figuring out who your audience is was important. Did you guys do any surveying or how did you figure out like really like the right people that you guys wanted?
So we're fortunate because even though, we're a little boutique and all we do is CoolSculpting, I mean, it's backed by, at this point, Allergan, because Allergan bought Zeltique for about $2.4 billion a little over a year ago. I mean, they're spending $65 million on marketing. They have the metrics. I mean, they know the age. I mean, they know every single thing that you need to know about who that ideal candidate is for CoolSculpting. And they're very open with it because they actually get paid based on how many CoolSculpting treatments we do. And so it's at their best interest to give, the CoolSculpting providers the resources they need to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you looked outside basically I think for anybody not in your business, you could probably go to like Facebook and look at like what are your audience insights or different research. Awesome.
And we get surprised. My sister and I were written up in the Arizona Business Journal, and we were on the front page, and we literally had $140,000 worth of business in 2 months. And like 87-year-olds were bringing in this newspaper with coffee stains and being like, I want to freeze my fat. And I'm like, why are you 87 and care? And, I had one woman look at me and she goes, honey, I want to look good in my open casket. No judgment there, but it was a market demographic that we never even considered. But they have the disposable income. They want to feel better in their own clothes, and they have diet and exercise resistant fat. So it was pretty eye-opening for us when that rolled in.
Wow, very cool. Let's see. So you guys, in year one, you had 780,000, year two, 1.4, and year three, 2.2. So how did you put some really great systems in place? It looks like you were good at generating traffic, at leads, getting them in and then closing them. So what really changed between year one, year two, and year three?
I think something that, in full disclosure, we're continually working on that. I love Coolsculpting because it works. And the other kind of crappy part about Coolsculpting is it works. So it's not, Botox where you get these lifelong clients, and we don't offer any other technology. So I don't have the ability to cross-sell. So for us, it's really about getting people to do other body parts and then also sending in referrals. And I think it was about year 2 to year 2.5 that we really saw a big change in the number of referrals that we were actually getting. I think in large part that was because of the direct-to-consumer marketing, and people were more comfortable saying, oh, I did Coolsculpting and I love it, where before it was a little bit more hush-hush. But I think those are some big things that changed. And then we just started to gain a reputation. People talk about good businesses and we're good, genuine people, and somehow that happened to spread, and so more and more people just kept coming to us.
Very cool. Did you guys facilitate referrals at all, or do those just happen naturally?
So mostly they happen naturally. I like to surprise to the upside. And, Gary Vaynerchuk is one of my favorite people, and he has an entire thank you department. And so I think it's pretty cool if you don't have something in writing, but you just randomly surprise people who are sending you referrals and say, hey, guess what? It's a great way for me to build my business. I don't take your referral lightly. And here's XYZ because we just wanted to say thank you. We do that with every single person who sends us a referral. And I also actually call them personally and send them a handwritten card. You've got to reinforce the behaviors you want. And there's no better way to do that than actually thank someone in writing and in person for sending you a referral.
Awesome. And then, so you mentioned reputation was really big too. Did you guys focus a lot on the review sites like Yelp or Google Maps?
Yeah, what we do. So Yelp more. I think last month alone, we made like $45,000 off of Yelp. We do not do paid advertising with Yelp. We just have those reviews. Something that I believe that they don't necessarily believe is that when it comes to restaurants, I think people use Yelp as a search engine. When I think it comes to Coolsculpting, I think they hear about Coolsculpting, they hear about Bodify, and then they check your reputation on Yelp. So that's why we actually don't advertise with them. And it's painstaking. I remember the first time I got a 4-star review, I called the person and was in tears and said, oh my God, what did we do wrong? And then I just realized it wasn't when you get a bad review, or if you're going to get a bad review, rather, it's when. And it's just about how you handle it. And people come in and they talk about our negative reviews more than our positive ones. And they always say, holy crap, I cannot believe how you handled that. It was done absolutely professionally. It was done beautifully. And I knew I wanted to do business with your organization based on that negative review. So it was a little bit of a change of a mindset for me, because it destroys me when we get a not so positive review.
Could you give me an example of how you handled it?
Yeah. So actually we had one probably 2 weeks ago. She gave us a 1-star. She hadn't been in almost a year and a half. And she, in my opinion, was pretty aggressive. She goes, oh my God, this is a horrible organization. Coolsculpting was the most painful thing that I ever did. I called the office and they gave me medication and it didn't work. And this is absolutely absurd that they didn't have any other solution. And I talked to the business owner and she was short with me and didn't make me feel blah, blah, blah. Who cares? And so I just decided to call her. First of all, I was very shaken that she not only said it about Coolsculpting, but my business, because with our past negative reviews, they typically just say they don't like Coolsculpting, which sometimes is fair. If they don't like the result, they don't like the result. And if they didn't think it was worth the money, I can't do anything about that. But in this instance, I felt like she was saying she didn't like me and my team. And so I just called her and I said, look, what can I do to rectify this situation? You're clearly upset. You've come in a year and a half ago, but you're still upset enough that you went and wrote this review. And she just gave me a laundry list of things she was upset about. And I just said, you're absolutely right. And I said, I'm sorry. And how can I make this better? And she gave me a few suggestions. And at the end, she literally sent me a text and she goes, you're not the person I thought you were. And I will take the review down immediately.
Wow.
I think that was a positive way to handle
That's
it.
amazing. And then are you doing anything like helping, like maybe with Infusionsoft, pushing people to give you positive reviews?
Yeah, we absolutely do that as well. I think that that's an effort that we would like to see more of a return on. We have an internal booking system and people give us a ton of reviews almost every time they leave, but to actually go to Yelp or Facebook or Google Plus, that's one that we struggle with a little bit. So when we get one, we're super excited.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're running short on time here, so I want to go through a few questions with you before we end.
Please.
Jessica, did you experience a time when you thought your business would fail?
No, I know. So I thought about that before you said that. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but it's so weird. When I was young, I just knew for some reason that my sister and I were going to create something and that it was going to be wildly successful and it was just going to be okay. So there's certainly, and that doesn't mean that I haven't had hard times or I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do better than I did. And we're not doing that. But has there been a time where I've categorically been like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to close up shop and this isn't going to work? Absolutely not.
Okay, let me re-ask it this way, because like I've worked with clinics before when we had our agency in the past. And for example, like a lot of people will be like, they'll get their lead, someone interested in their service, and then they'll even get them to do a consult, but then they have problems like getting them to buy, or they have problems getting them to show up. And you guys obviously focused on the small details that actually were important enough to make it like all work. So how did you guys know to like figure that stuff out?
Yeah, I think Joe Polish and Stephen Fairley, two of my mentors, were incredibly important in that regard. And I believe it was Stephen Fairley again, who probably did not create this phrase, but he said the fortune is in the follow-up. And I believe it. Most salespeople are willing to follow up with someone once, when the truth is most people need about 5 follow-up attempts after a consultation or appointment to decide to buy. And so we follow up religiously, with the tasks and Infusionsoft and just some automatic campaigns from those who don't buy, and also handwritten cards. We're really good. I mean, we made $800,000 in the last 2.5 years from people who came in for consults, did not buy, left, and then bought later. I was just listening to a podcast, and the concept is called The Nudge. And it was talking about little things that you can kind of do to nudge people over the edge. And so one of the things we just changed today is anybody who does not buy, instead of an email, they get a handwritten card from us. And we are literally going to tell them, we connected with you. We loved having you in so much that I've decided to put a $100 credit into your account for your Coolsculpting. And we'll see how that works. So if we ever do a follow-up, I'll let you know if it gets our butts kicked or if it actually works or my hand's just tired from writing.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. If you could go back in time and start over, what would you tell yourself?
So we have a business coach because I believe everyone has to have a business coach even when you're at the top. And we actually met with him on Tuesday and he just said, you never let yourself win. And so I think that part of my DNA, just because I grew up with sports and I'm competitive, I just believe if I always have a loftier goal or I don't allow myself to get complacent, that I'm going to keep pushing myself to do better. But I definitely think there's times that I need to give myself grace and just sit back and say, holy crap. And, less than 4 years, we've generated $6 million and have become an incredible company. And it's okay to celebrate those milestones. So I think that's something I would definitely do different.
Okay. What's the one thing you did that had the biggest impact on your growth?
Hands down, I think database is king. Without a database, you have no need for a business. You have no need for a website. You have no need for a team. And I think that we've done exceptionally well at making sure every single opportunity we have, we collect people's information so we can nurture them and get them to get in. So that's probably been our biggest way to grow our business.
Awesome. And then what's been an area that you've personally had to evolve and grow in since you started your business?
Yeah, I think 2 areas. Negative reviews we already talked about. I mean, those really get me to my core. I heard Allie Webb the other day who owns Drive Bar and she goes, yeah, we have a 97.7% rating. She's like, but that means 20,000 people dislike us and it breaks my heart. And so I have to get over that because I take it very personally. And I just have to know that, guess what? I could send someone a gold bar and they're going to be pissed if they have to pay for postage. Some people you just can't make happy and you just do the best that you can. Secondarily, I think my sister and I are very, very different and we swim in our own lanes, but there are definitely times that I treat her differently as my sister. And I know that if she were just a friend who was the co-founder with me, that I probably wouldn't talk to her in the ways that I talk to her. And she's my most important relationship in this business. So I got to watch myself with that one.
Awesome. Well, I think this was a really great episode, especially for local or, businesses with clinics, but even myself, I think there's a lot to learn here about your marketing and things that you do really well to convert customers. So Jessica, one final thing. Where's a good place for people to learn more about you or your company and connect with you?
Yeah, so our website is thebodify.com. Unfortunately, Bodify.com was taken and the guy wanted $2 million for it. So we're now thebodify.com.
All right, so we'll get that linked up in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on, Jessica, and sharing your journey to 7 figures.
Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Thanks again for listening to our show this week. If you want to find out more about Jessica Stellwagen and the lessons she shared today or read our show notes, visit LeadQuizzes.com/24. If you'd like to start generating more leads for your business and get a free trial to LeadQuizzes, go to LeadQuizzes.com/podcast. Next week, I'll be interviewing Ryan Dice on how he built Digital Marketer to $10 million in annual recurring revenue. Please subscribe to our show so you don't miss this next episode. I'm Jeremy Ellens, and you've been listening to Journey to 7 Figures.